Hello and welcome to today's video. So today we are finally getting started on my third bridesmaid's dress. So this is the bridesmaid's dress Hannah. So I did already months ago now make this very rough, very quick drape. It doesn't fit her. Well, it does fit her, but it was completely off, to be honest. It was a waste of time, really. I had both Angie and Rebecca coming round one evening to try on like their first drapes, drafts, mock-ups, and Hannah was coming as well, and I felt that she'd be left out if she didn't have anything to try on. So I think it took me like 15 minutes or something, threw fabric on the dress form, marked it out, cut it out, sewed it together very roughly, and yeah, this is what we ended up with. So it's not the greatest. I got her to try it on. Actually, I'm saying it's a waste of time, but it wasn't a waste of time at all, because what it did show us was that we love the overall idea of the design. The halter neck with the strap going to the back and the nice detailing on the back. We love that, and actually the back looked really good. Just the front was completely off. It was far too far in, it was too low on the neck. It just needs a lot of adjusting. So I'm finally getting back into this one. So this we're kind of going to keep nearby as a reference to the design, but we're not really going to be going off of that because, as I say, it needed a lot of work, so I'd rather just start fresh. So I actually here have some paper laid out, and I have marked out her bust line, waistline, above bust / underarm line, shoulder line to the correct dimensions for her. Let me try and change the angle so you can kind of see what I'm doing, and I'll try and explain what I'm doing as I do it. But I'm kind of winging it at the same time as well. Okay, I hope you can see this okay. As I was explaining, I've got the waistline as the bottom of the paper, and I've got the bust line drawn straight across, above bust / underarm, and then shoulder line. And I've got this here is 1/4 of the total bust circumference, and this line is half. So I've got centre back, centre front, and then this will be side seam. These are my base markings, and then just up here, I don't know what this is on my paper, it looks like lipstick. Up here I have marked out the back neckline. That's kind of just where I'm at this moment. Let's work out the front bodice, and then back will follow from there. So I'm going to mark in my neck width from the centre front. So I'm going to make that 3 1/4, and I'm also going to mark in my neck drop, which I'm making 3 1/2. Does that seem right? Right, no, so my 3 1/2 was way too much, so I'm going to raise that by 2 inches too much. 2 inches, because then when I get her to try this on, I can lower it. I have decided to switch over to voiceover for now because it started to get a little bit muddled while I was trying to work this out at the same time as explaining it and filming it. So I've raised that neckline up a bit higher, and I am now just drawing in that neck curve. But then I decided it was a bit too straight and I wanted to curve it a little bit more around her neck. So I've just changed that curve a little bit. And then I am just taking my curved ruler and I am drawing a line from that neck point down into the above bust underarm point to mark out that armhole. Now I'm taking the ruler back down to the bottom, and I am going to work out where my center point is here. Because we have made the width of this 1/4 of the bust measurement, The waist is obviously going to be smaller than that, so we need to then take this measurement out of the waist using a dart, which will then also help us to add the pleats into the neckline. So I have just marked half of the measurement along the waistline and then drawn a straight line straight up through the bust point and up to the above bust point. Then I am working out the difference between the bust measurement and the waist measurement. And then I'm splitting that difference equally between either side of that center dart line. Then we just need to connect those points up to the center of the dart point at the top of that bust line, and that's our dart drawn in place. Now we need to add in a slight bust dart, just to take away some of that ease that there will be around that kind of armhole slope. So I am dividing this measurement of the armhole, I'm dividing this into thirds, and then at the first third from the side seam, I'm going to mark in just 1/4 of an inch at that point and draw some new dart legs, which will bring in this tiny little bust dart. Now it's time to get rid of these darts and move them round to the neckline to add in these neckline pleats. So we need to cut up this side seam. We're going to cut along the dart legs. To get to the bust dart, we're going to have to just cut near that armhole. I'm keeping a bit of excess just so when we swing things about, we've got a little bit of room to work with. And then swing the paper round to close the dart. So we're going to do the bust one first, even out that curve, and cut along the armhole. My head is completely in the way of the shot, but I have just slightly adjusted that neck curve again and just dropped it slightly lower. And then I'm cutting along this new line, as well as down the center front to remove all the excess paper, so we can now finally work on the pleats. I've just added a couple of annotations just to keep me right. And then we're going to mark out where we want the pleats to be along the neckline. Draw these lines down to that dart point. Cut down those lines to the point, not through it. So then we can add another piece of paper behind it and swing that waist dart shut. Make sure that's stuck down well, and then we're going to smooth out the top half on this new piece of paper. We're going to stick down the sides and then make sure our pleats are spaced out evenly in between. I'm making sure to use plenty of tape and make sure all of these pieces are stuck down good and proper and they're not going to shift anywhere. Now I'm just going to fold all of those pleats back closed so that I can see where they're going to lie inside themselves, and then I can cut around that neckline again once they're folded together to get it as accurate as I can. Now we have the front bodice piece all made up and ready to go. I'm just going to finish writing down my pattern piece names and annotations, and we can put it off to the side and move on to the next piece. Moving on to doing the back panels now, and I didn't realise that I was slightly out of frame here, but I've just marked up the centre back how tall I want it to be. And then I have taken from that same point on the side seam where the front bodice finished with my curved ruler again, just making this a really nice curve from that point down to that point on the centre back. And here I am just adding in the points to that centre of this panel again to add in this dart so we can take out the extra room, take out a bit of ease and make it fit much nicer. I fixed the angle now so you can actually see what I'm doing, but then obviously didn't press record and missed this part out. So all I done before I realised it wasn't filming is I have mapped out where I want the back pleated strap to be. And now I am just also mapping out how wide I want the neck strap to be and where I kind of want it to sit within the back strap. Now, to figure out how I want that neck strap to be, I'm just pulling in that very first rough draft as a guide, because I was kind of completely guessing here. I wasn't really sure what best way to work it out, so I thought save myself the hassle and just use what I've already got. I knew that it fitted not too badly around her neck. I'm just going to cut out all the pieces now so we can cut out some mock-up fabric. But because that neck strap overlaps the back strap piece, I am just going to trace it out on a different piece of paper so I still get a full piece of both. I've just drawn in all my grain lines, and then I'm going to start cutting out all the pieces. And in this back piece I will have to remove the dart, but I made a mistake and started cutting through the back strap piece. Thankfully I realised before I'd cut it all off, and I managed to just tape it back together, and it wasn't too much of a disaster. So I decided it was safer to cut that back strap piece out first before I risked cutting through it again. Back to the back bodice panel, I am just cutting that dart and then closing it up just to remove that extra space that we have. And then using the curved ruler once again to even up that curve and cut off all the excess. Now time to add in the pleats to this back strap. So I have marked out where on the center back where I want these pleats to be, and then I am also going to measure an equal distance for the end points along the bottom of that strap where it meets the bodice piece. And then I am going to draw lines down to these pieces and then do our slash and spread method on another piece of paper to get our pleats. Again, I am making sure that all of these pleats are spaced evenly and that I am using plenty of tape to make sure they're stuck down and secure once I've found their spots so that they do not move. Then I'm going to cut off all the excess paper, but again, where those pleats are going to fold together, I am leaving a bit of room so I can fold the pleats back up and cut along that centre back line. Okay, I've just tidied up a bit. So now we have all our pieces here. So I've got the front bodice, I've got this back bottom bodice piece, there's then this middle section and also the neck strap. Next step then is to cut all of this out of some fabric, sew it together, get Hannah to try it on and see how it looks. Hello, it is a new day working on this dress now. So I had Hannah around to try it on, and honestly we have started in a very strong place. So yeah, we tried it on her and really there's not too much changes to be made. We just need to, hopefully you can see that, we just need to raise the back waistline slightly and then just change slightly this angle into the side seam from the front panel. Pinch out a little dart in the back and then pinch out as well a little bit just out of this strap. I wrote notes this time as well. I am learning from my previous mistakes. Yeah, the only other thing, we were going to just thicken up this neck strap slightly just to give it a little bit more strength and really just to balance out the design, because both of these back pieces are quite thick, quite wide. The super skinny neck strap looked a little bit kind of out of place, so we're just going to make that a little bit thicker, not too much. I think we're just going to add like a 1/4 inch thickness to that. So yeah, I've got my notes here. So I am going to take the pattern pieces and make these adjustments. I think I'm going to take fresh paper. I honestly feel like we're in a really strong place with this already. I think we're ready to make a full mock-up with skirt and everything in our flowery fabric. And yeah, just hopefully that all fits, and hopefully that's not too much adjustments are needed done after that. So I think I'm going to, because this has gotten a little bit messy with all this, I'm going to take some fresh paper and redraw it out with seam allowances and all of that. So yeah, let's do that. So I've got my pattern pieces, I've got my list of changes that are needed, and I have some bigger, fresher paper. Okay, so this is a rather repetitive process, but I am taking each of the pattern pieces, I am making any adjustments that are needed, and then I am tracing them out onto this fresh pattern paper. I'm truing up any lines that need to be made, as I say, making any adjustments along the way, and adding all seam allowance, notches, annotations, any instructions that are going to be helpful to me when it comes to cutting out all the fabric and sewing the actual thing together. Okay, we now have everything drawn out. So we've got shell lining of the front bodice, we've got lining, shell of the back neck strap, shell lining of the back bodice, and then lining shell of the back strap. So I just need to cut these all out. So let's do that. Done. All the bodice pattern pieces are now made and ready to go. So I now need to make the skirt pattern pieces. But I think I'm going to go and do that. I'll maybe film a little bit, but I think I'll mostly do that off camera, because if you watched my Angelica part 1, I kind of went a bit more into making the pattern for that skirt, and if you've seen that, you would have seen how much of a nightmare it is, because it's such a big piece of paper to try and work your way around. So I'm going to go and do that. I think I might actually go downstairs and use the living room floor because it's a bigger area, and get this all marked out and get the skirt pattern made. So yeah, I should be back in just a couple of seconds in video land with the skirt pieces as well. Okay, so we've ran into a small hitch where I don't actually have enough pattern paper left to make the skirt panels. So I am going to pause on this just now. I've just gone on and ordered some more pattern paper, which should be here in the next couple of days. So I will see you in a couple of days once I have more pattern paper. Our big roll of pattern paper has just arrived. So, and I think I've got about 2 hours until I need to be at the field. So let's just use this time and quickly do our skirt pattern. This took a good while, and it was such a big piece of paper to work with, but I pretty much just stuck enough paper together to make it big enough to fit the whole skirt in, and then I worked out my radius that I needed to make the skirt fit, marked out that radius, marked out the length, marked all the pleats and side seam points along the waistline, drew all our lines in, and then got it all cut out. It is another new day. So I have got our mock-up fabric looked out, I have got the bodice pattern, shell and linings all looked out, and I have our skirt shell pattern pieces as well. So I worked out that I needed about 6 meters of the fabric. So I just measured that out and then ripped off that piece. I was being quite generous with the 6 meters, but I thought I'd rather overestimate than underestimate and then not have enough. Now this is an extremely sped up clip of me fighting with this fabric to get it laid out flat. It was 10 minutes and I've managed to get it to just under 10 seconds. I'm not going to bore you with 40 minutes of me pinning and cutting out fabric, so here's just a little clip. So it's finally time to sew the mock-up. I've got the whole dress here all cut out in the mock-up fabric. I've got bodice, shell, lining and skirt, shell. I'm not going to do the lining in this. I've got the bodice, shell and lining and the skirt, shell and lining, and I'm just going to sew it all together and hopefully get Hannah to come and try it on tonight or maybe in the next couple of days. So yeah, this dress isn't going to be quite as straightforward as some of the other ones where we just sew the shell all together and the lining all together and then attach the lining to the shell. Because we've got this, because the back is in 3 different sections and we want to make it all as neat as we can and tuck it all away, I have to construct it a little bit differently. So I need to do the neck, strap, shell and lining together and then do the back, strap, shell and lining together with the neck strap in it, and then I need to do the bodice front, bodice back, shell together, lining together, and then the lining to the shell with those straps, back and neck straps inserted in. Yeah, so I'm just going to sew it all together here, and then in part 2 we'll hopefully, if this mock-up all goes to plan and there isn't much more adjustments needed, then in part 2 we will just be sewing the whole dress and I'll go more into detail of how I'm actually sewing it together. But yeah, for this I just need to get it sewn together and ready to try on, so I'm going to do that now. I've got my sewing machine all set up and ready to go, and I've got my cup of tea to get me through it. So let's get on. So I managed to get the whole dress sewn together, and Hannah managed to nip round after her work to try it on, and we are so happy with it. It almost feels a little bit wrong. I feel like we've kind of skipped a stage because we went so quickly from drafting the pattern to doing this mock-up to now be able to call it a final mock-up, and now I can sew the real dress together. So I've taken 3 notes and they're super simple notes. I just need to add a little bit of ease into the center back, just into the top of the center back bodice. The straps on the back are perfect. Just the top of the center back, I just want to add in a tiny little bit of ease just to give it that little bit more movement, because I added that inch up and took that dart out. It's just taking it, it's sitting nice and flush against her back now, but it's just kind of sitting, it's not too tight, but we just want that little bit more ease. And then when we had it on her, I just marked the best place for the slit notch, where the slit should start. So I took that measurement, so I just need to mark that on the pattern pieces now. And then I made it far too long for her. I actually have her shoes that she's going to wear on the wedding day here. So she tried it on with the shoes on, and I still had about 12 inches too long. So I'm going to take off, I think I'm going to take off about 7 or 8 inches, just to still give us a little bit of room to play with, just in case anything that does kind of go wrong, or anything is slightly off, or it does go a bit uneven. I would rather still have too much length to work with and shorten than take off too much and then it ends up being a little bit too short. I mean, we still haven't decided if we're going floor length, ankle length, T length, or what. So I could probably take off 14 inches and it would be fine. But yeah, I just don't want to risk taking it too short. So yeah, I'm just going to make those slight adjustments and additions to these patterns, and then we will be ready to make the real thing. So that will be it for this video. I'll do a part 2 when we make the real dress, the final dress out of the real fabric, and I'll go more into the actual sewing and how I figured out best to put these straps together, because it was quite fiddly. So yeah, that will be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.